video, we're going to go over brute force calculation and how to calculate at the title, even I would say at the high, and to get to how to brute force calculation at the highest level of chess. So I'm going to go pull up my notes and we're going to go over this game where I have got a 92% accuracy, and this is the only game I tried on my brother's account, authorized and given with permission. So the point is to show that I can play every single game, but however, due to such a low yield bracket, I always purposely hold back and try to play just kind of literally just slow around and not lock in at all, and just simply just play, just freaking literally, how do I explain this? Play to literally just for fun. So I have one inaccuracy, and let's get into this script. Okay. Alright, let me turn on the TV. We're going to just use a game review, then we're going to go over some analysis. Okay, so this one called B4 calculation and search pruning.
Your opponent's pushing D4, fighting for the center, classic move, huh?
Alright, so queen, so my opponent goes for the queen pawn opening. Now, all we have to remember with pawns is what squares do the pawns fight for? They fight for the dark squares. Now, this is going to be, the focus is going to be, obviously, this game, me as black, my opponent as white, and this guy breaks down the brute force calculating deep, exhausting search while using pruning, discard the noise, and suboptimal moves. The same object that chess engines use are in the best in the world to maximize depth by narrowing the worth of your search. So think about it as this: the ability to focus on 1 to 2 moves and think about estimately 9 to 15 moves in the future. Accuracy, what 80 to 90% accuracy. Now, let's get started. My opponent plays queen's pawn opening. I respond with the Indians game. Don't know much of the theory, but I basically, to my knowledge, most flexible opening. My opponent is fighting for these squares. I'm fighting for these squares. My opponent plays E3, playing, I believe this is the Fielder's defense. So kicking ace. Now I already noticed one thing. White has what? A bad bishop, and he has a good light square bishop. So what's my goal? Is to pounce and restrict these bishops, my pawns, on all the light squares, because immediately this one move tells me that his bishop's going to be really bad, because even if he unkettles it, he's going to be staring at granite. The point remains the same. So I just go d5, just transitioning to more of a queen's pawn opening fielder defense, with starting on an Indian game, sort of transposition. Then I go pawn to c3, going for a triangle-like structure. However, this bishop is absolutely terrible, and I absolutely abuse. So I already think in my head, this relative value of this minor piece, it is like 1.5. This piece is done. It's useless. I'm going to absolutely abuse the lack of that minor piece for my attack in the future. So in the opening, I'm not calculating as deeply yet. Just simply fighting for the light squares and trying to restrict this good bishop as much as I possibly can. Hold on. That's the end of the game. Whoops. Okay, go back.
Killer checkmate.
Back. Let's go back.
You are now able to checkmate the king.
No. Go back. Oh, Lord, stop.
Your opponent blocked the check, interposed.
Okay. Other than, well, man, pawn to c3, creating the triangle. I immediately put my bishop out.
Developing the bishop and controlling the
and just fighting for these light squares and saying, hey, here's my bad bishop. I want to trade it for your good bishop if you ever put it on the frickin' 3. So playing for a powerful affix and abusing this good bishop and trying to restrict it as much as I can. And then knight to a3 doesn't really make sense. It would make way more logical sense from this point of view to develop the piece here, develop the knight to the center, restrict the pawns, fight for the dark squares. Only would make more sense. That would have been a better move, my opponent. But my opponent decided not to. Not to go down the rim. I go pawn to e6. Why? Now I have a clear plan. This is my bad bishop, trying to trade off this good bishop, and my good bishop is on this beautiful pawn chain. And look at the weakness of the pawn structure. This is a triangle pawn structure, and I see 2 base pawn chains. Pawn b2 and pawn f2. These are the main weaknesses, and my opponent gives me an opportunity to trade off my good bishop to damage his pawn structure severely. So, as you saw, my opponent develops this knight now. Now we compare. I have 1, 2, 3 developed pieces. He has 1, 2. I don't even say that's developed. There's 1 developed piece. Technically, maybe 2. Some other fact. So I trade off the bishop.
Getting ready to castle Kingside. Good stuff.
Which The reason why I do this is for the long-term structural damage of this pawn. Even though this says the engine considers it a good move, it's a good move because it damages the pawn structure.
Ready to castle Kingside. Good stuff.
So takes, I castle
Kingside.
Kingside.
Keep the king safe and get those rooks active.
And then I connect the 2 rooks, connect the king's safety. Even though I trade off my good bishop, I force double isolated pawns, which the engines and even Stockfish 18 start to implement the second right, and trading off minor pieces for very good pawn, bad pawn structures like this. So, as you saw, bishop takes e3. I call this a candidate disregard all candidate moves is because it shatters white's pawn structure and it produces a strategical win. Other moves I was thinking about is maybe pawn to c5, putting pressure, trying to chip off and use more of a hypermodernism like method to chip away. But I decided not to. My opponent plays pawn to b4. It's very simple. Bishop takes c4. What? This is a multi-postal move. Free pawn, overextended the poison pawn. I took the poison pawn, pinned the knight to the queen, and this bishop is going to block. Look how bad this bishop is. Look how garbage it is. This bishop is literally like it should just want to go off the board. Okay, but let's continue. My opponent plays h3.
Your opponent kicked your bishop.
I trade off the light square bishop.
Your better option was to move.
Takes. I should have kept the pin, but I simply wanted to keep simplifying material and force a trade of the bishop right. So I give away the bishop pair. Why? Because even though technically my opponent has the bishop pair, this bishop is very restricted, and this bishop is just non-existent. So, in a relative value sense, there's no reason for I'm giving him the entire bishop here because he only has a decent light square bishop. And so I develop my knight to bd7, simply for trying to support a potential pawn thrust in the future to strike up the board because the king is in the center of the board. So, c9. Then my opponent goes h4, trying to go expand his pawn, try to go for a potential attack. I put my knight on a beautiful outpost.
Well done.
I would have maybe even strike this right away, but I didn't think that was necessary. But I wanted to do more of a Kasparov squeeze, restrict all the oxygen in the king's camp, and completely dominate the dark square, so this bishop is even worse in relative value. Bishop to h3.
Okay.
And then I strike, finally, c5.
Central break activate.
Takes. Knight takes, beautifully developed. I could develop here and gain a tempo on the queen. However, I just wanted to simply...
Your best option was to defend a pawn that was under attack.
I thought that was a reasonable move too, but I didn't really see a reason behind it. Even though it would have gained the tempo, I wanted my knights to work together to completely fight for the light squares and dark squares. So, knight takes is reasonable. Kingside gathering now he castles into my attack. Even though my pawn chain's opposite and pointing towards the queen side, this is completely irrelevant, and I have all my pieces restricting the king side. So, I think to my head, okay, what do I want to do? My opponent castled into even though the pawn chain doesn't point towards an attack. How can I think about opening up my king side and going for a king side attack? I want to target this pawn. I want to get a rook lift going, so I think of f5. I go think of f5 to cut off this bishop even more, to beautifully anchor this knight, and to simply open up the queen and get a rook lift, and then swarm the king like this. So I go pawn to f5, pawn f5, and then I calculate for my opponent's defense. My opponent thought about for a minute and played a pretty solid move. Defends the pawn.
They defended their hanging pawn. Okay.
Which is not too bad. So I calculated freaking pawn to f5, queen to h5, or potentially maybe queen to freaking h2, rook f6, maybe even freaking king to h1, then freaking king h1. King h1, rook scoots over, and then king h1, queen takes d4, rook to f, rook to g1, rook takes, king takes, rook takes, so rook takes here, So here, check. King scoots over. So about 6 moves. Let me restart the calculation. Let me actually restart. Gotta actually think really clear about this. So pawn f4. Here, right here. So let's go with the best move. King would have probably been freaking queen here. Defend the square. Rook lift. Freaking queen takes. Freaking queen takes. Freaking scoop. Check. Move. Check move. Freaking move.
What did you say about the key? Did I reach smacked up? No, I'm so sorry.
Alright, bro, I'm recording a video. Watch your mouth. You get beat up. You get D1 beat up. Alright, bro, let me finish, bro. I'll violate you. Nah,
you just cooked this kid, bro.
I'll violate it, bro. I'll violate. This was me. I had him.
You saw something.
No, I had it. Nice, so, not in the freaking outpost.
Well done.
I don't know. Making his visual by granite. Strike the center. Takes. Freaking king passes to an attack. Pawn to f5. Opening lines to queen and rook. Rook to f6. A beautiful rook lift. Queen is restricting itself more. Check. King scoots over. Knight check with the beautiful triple fork.